Welcome everyone. I'm just going to begin with another prayer to Patanjali. The authorship is attributed to Vedavyasa. It may be any Vyasa, I don't know. So I will chant that prayer and then we will come to the Yogena Chittasya prayer. Yeah? यस्त्यक्त्वा रूपमाद्यं प्रभवति जगतः अनेकधा अनुग्रहाय प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिः विषमविषधरः अनेकवक्त्रसुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिः भुजगपरिकरः प्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः सवोऽव्यात् सितविमलतनुः योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्णवागीशयतीश्वराभ्यां सम्प्राप्तचक्राङ्कणभाष्यसारं श्रीनूत्नरङ्गेन्द्रयतौ समर्पितस्वं श्रीकृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमीडे विरोधे कार्तिके मासे शतताराकृतोदयं योगाचार्यं कृष्णमार्यं गुरुवर्यमहं भजे। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। So we are entering the second phase of learning the second chapter. So we have done one round that we call Shravanam, which is learning through listening. In the second phase, Mananam, there are some intermediate steps in between which we will look at today. So in the Mananam phase, we are committing the teachings to memory. So the mind and the intellect is involved at this stage of learning. Whereas in the Shravanam phase, it is listening from the heart. So when we listen from the heart, we actually bypass the mind. And if we are truly listening with a fresh mind, of course, many of us may have studied this text many times before, learned from a teacher, and we do come with some existing knowledge and ideas around the text. And then when we are listening, we are also referencing what we already know, right? We are comparing the notes. We are saying, oh, this I don't know. Oh, this I already know. Oh, this was understood differently. What was right? All of that will come, right? We put the doubts aside and we simply learn to listen. So it's a practice by itself, Shravanam. We listen with a certain quiet mind, a deep conviction to what we are listening to, and also the source, where the teachings are coming from. So there is a certain faith and trust in what we are listening to, whom we are listening to. So we can actually listen with a very quiet mind. The second phase of learning, Mananam, is where we are committing it to memory. So at this phase, chanting the sutras become an important aspect of the learning. Because when we want to uh, hold these teachings and hold it within us so that they will guide our life, committing the sutras to memory is very important because there are many layers of meanings of the sutra. It's not possible for us to remember everything that the sutras are saying. But when we learn to chant by heart, they will come to us. You know, one of the best things that happened to me is in my learning phase of the Yoga Sutra that we came together every week. Every weekend, Desikachar would uh, offer a public lecture 8 to 9 a.m. at KYM every Saturday. And rain or sunshine, if he was in Chennai, the class would happen. And it was 17 years that I went through that Saturday morning lectures. Apart from the study of the text, outside of that, with him and with other teachers. And I continue to study even now. But the practice of chanting the sutras and committing it to memory is what really helped me to come back to the sutras, make the connection between one sutra in first chapter and another sutra in the fourth chapter, and some other idea in the third chapter. So these connections come alive when we commit it to memory. And when we learn young, I was 21 when I started learning. It's easier to commit it to memory, right? To memorize things. Now I find it difficult at this age if I have to learn something new and remember. But all that it takes is that we learn to chant every day. Okay. So we are going to restart our Yoga Sutra chanting from July. So please make it a point to attend these sessions so that you can learn to chant the sutras by heart. So now we are going to chant a few sutras. Pratima, are you chanting after me?
Yes, Saras.
Okay. So I will chant once and Pratima will repeat the sutra. All of you can repeat. We are going to put up the text on the screen. So you can look at the text and just listen and repeat. Okay. You can repeat along with Pratima. अथ साधनपादः
अथ साधनपादः
तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः
तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वरप्रणिधानानि क्रियायोगः
समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेशतनूकरणार्थश्च
समाधिभावनार्थः क्लेश तनूकरणार्थश्च
अविद्या अस्मिता राग द्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः
अविद्या अस्मिता राग द्वेष अभिनिवेशाः क्लेशाः
अविद्याक्षेत्रम् उत्तरेषां प्रसुप्ततनु विच्छिन्न उदाराणाम्
अविद्याक्षेत्रम् उत्तरेषां प्रसुप्त तनु विच्छिन्न उदाराणाम्
अनित्य अशुचि दुःख अनात्मसु नित्य शुचि सुख आत्मख्यातिः अविद्या
अनित्य अशुचि दुःख अनात्मसु नित्य शुचि सुख आत्मख्यातिः अविद्या
दृग्दर्शनशक्त्योः एकात्मता इव अस्मिता
दृग्दर्शनशक्त्योः एकात्मता इव अस्मिता
सुखानुशयी रागः
सुखानुशयी रागः
दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः
दुःखानुशयी द्वेषः
स्वरसवाही विदुषोऽपि समारूढः अभिनिवेशः
स्वरसवाही विदुषोऽपि समारूढः अभिनिवेशः
ते प्रतिप्रसवहेयाः सूक्ष्माः
ते प्रतिप्रसवहेयाः सूक्ष्माः
ध्यानहेयाः तद्वृत्तयः
ध्यानहेयाः तद्वृत्तयः
क्लेशमूलः कर्माशयो दृष्टादृष्टजन्म वेदनीयः
क्लेशमूलः कर्माशयो दृष्टादृष्टजन्म वेदनीयः
सति मूले तद्विपाको जात्यायुर्भोगाः
सति मूले तद्विपाको जात्यायुर्भोगाः
ते ह्लादपरितापफलाः पुण्यापुण्यहेतुत्वात्
ते ह्लादपरितापफलाः पुण्यहेतुत्वात्
परिणामताप संस्कारदुःखैः गुणवृत्तिविरोधाच्च दुःखमेव सर्वं विवेकिनः
परिणाम ताप संस्कार दुःखैः गुणवृत्तिविरोधाच्च दुःखमेव सर्वं विवेकिनः
हेयं दुःखमनागतम्
हेयं दुःखमनागतम्
Chanting is one of the most powerful ways to center the mind. And just imagine that this text is more than 2000 years old. And we don't know when it came into the written form. But for the longest time, the transmission was through the oral tradition. So the teachers chanted, the students repeated, committed it to memory, and then they transferred it to the next generation, to the next generation. It's like the river flowing, no, from its origin. And so many generations of people, teachers, students, practitioners have dipped into this river and taken the essence of it, and it continues to flow, right? Even today, this text remains extant. It is available for us to study and to reflect upon. And nothing much has changed about the human mind. Whatever Patanjali talks about the human mind, what he talked about more than 2000 years ago, stands good even today, right? We have been evolving as a race, but still the mind continues to have the same kind of problems. And when we chant, it is actually a transfer of prana. from the teacher to the student. So the teachings, whatever we are receiving through our listening, through our repeating, is a way that the prana gets transferred from one generation to the other. And it is that energy that carries us forward. And it is that energy that helps us to bring some quietness, some healing, some harmony to the world. So I want us to look at this study as not simply coming together and studying a text so that we can learn a little more, clarify our doubts, understand better, but a process of really spreading healing in the world. Because Yoga Sutra is a very important text for healing, because we know that most of the problems of mankind stem from our mind. And this is a text for us to understand our mind and also what is beyond the mind. There's a nice story that Jyotsna, one of my friends and colleagues, had shared some time ago. She said, one day in a conversation with Sir, our teacher Desikachar, he asked her that if you were left alone and you had to cross a huge desert and you don't know how long it will take to go to the other end of the desert, and you have to walk this desert alone, yeah, and you can carry very few things, what is that you would carry? Of course we will say, I will make sure that I have enough water, maybe an extra pair of slippers so that I can wear it in the hot sand, whatever. And then he said, do you know what I would carry? I would carry the Yoga Sutra. Yeah, that is the one text that I would carry. And then he also added saying, I don't need the book because the sutras are in my heart. So I just have to carry them in my heart and remember them as I walk through the desert. And the desert is simply the metaphor for our life, right? All the ups and downs that we go through. And life has its own way of throwing, uh, pleasurable experiences, challenges onto us. And there is no guarantee because I am practicing yoga, because I'm doing all this. There's no guarantee that I will always be in this nice, happy state of mind. Yeah. And everything depends on our state of mind. So, with all the ups and downs of life, if there's one thing that we could carry, that will be the teachings of the Yoga Sutra. And so I want us to look at this next 6 months as this joyful journey along with the Yoga Sutra. I'm saying we make it joyful because it may not be so joyful all the time, because we're going to be talking about dukkham, we're going to be talking about illness and pain and, the possibility for healing. So, and even illness and pain, can we look at it as an opportunity for growth? Because unless we learn to we learn to perceive all the problems of life, it could be a mild headache to a big loss in life. If I could look at it as an opportunity for my own spiritual growth, then the journey becomes more meaningful, purposeful, and worth taking that journey. Life becomes really something that we can intensely and deeply be involved and engaged with. Yeah. So with this introduction, I'm going to ask Lekha to share a little bit about the context of this second phase of learning. Yes, Lekha.
Thank you, Saras. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of power issues. So, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. It's been almost 2 months since we completed the first phase of our study. of Sadhanapada. And as always, all programs that are built around Yoga Sutras are special. But this particular program has been more special because we were looking at Sadhanapada through the lens of healing. And in the last 2 months, of course, life has continued to unfold. There have been moments of joy, there have been moments of ease, but there have also been moments of illness, of grief, of challenges, of confusion and clarity. And I'm sure that was the case for each one of you as well, because life continues to flow. Um, and this is um, what has been special is that while all this has been happening in life, the learning hasn't really stopped. Whatever we learned in the few months when we were doing the program, all of those insights, maybe some words from the sutra, or sometimes the sutra itself, keeps showing up in our life in the gap between the sessions. And I think that's what is special about the sutra. And I remember when we were students, and the first time we were learning to chant the text, it was very difficult. We could not get our tongues to around the words. It was difficult to spell the words. And Saras at that time had said, just keep listening. So what I would do is I would constantly be playing the audio of the Yoga Sutras while I'm cooking and doing other things. And slowly, it's like the words started seeping in, and they started making home in my mind and in my heart. And that's how that connection was first created, by just by listening. And then as you continue to study, as you continue to learn the meanings of the words, and you sit through Yoga Sutra classes, and in the classes sometimes you feel, I don't know what they are talking about, nothing is making sense, this is too complicated, this is like going right above my head. But then when a situation arises in our life and we are really struggling with it, suddenly a sutra returns to us. It's like, we are on autopilot, we are reacting, and right in the middle of a reaction, a sutra will surface, and then our reaction will change. It'll change texture, it'll change tone. Sometimes, it's a quiet evening, you're washing the vessels, you're putting things away, and a pattern that you have never noticed about yourself will suddenly reveal itself. And of course, once you see these things, you cannot unsee it. So what I have realized is the continuous learning of Yoga Sutra actually helps in many ways. But one of the ways in which it helps is that as we live our life, these teachings are reflected back to us. So I find that gap between learning the sutra once and learning the sutra again, this gap is both necessary, and it is in these gaps that the teaching actually starts working within us and working through us. So today, as we begin the next phase of studying the Sadhanapada, I want to spend a little time on exploring why we study this text. Why is it that we stay with it over long periods of time? Like when Saras was saying 17 years, every week you go and you learn the sutras. I mean, uh, I can just imagine what that does to you over those 17 years. And I know that uh, she continues to learn, she continues to study. So, uh, when we were doing the Acharya program, Saras told our class that Yoga Sutra is one of the most penetrating texts ever written on the nature of the human mind. And I have discovered that it is so. Because the Yoga Sutra looks very deeply into the nature of suffering and into the causes of suffering. So, in a conventional sense, it is not a text about healing, like an Ayurveda text might be. But very few texts in this world explore with such depth and care why human beings suffer and how clarity, freedom, balance can be cultivated through practice. So that's why I feel that Yoga Sutra is valuable not only to spiritual seekers, but to anyone who is seeking a deeper relationship with themselves and with life. I've realized that a sutra is like a seed. Within a few words lies the potential for a lifetime of inquiry. So, in some sense, that is why the study of Yoga Sutra can never be exhausted purely by learning the words or by learning the meaning. We have to return to it again and again, and every time the text will reveal something new. It is not that the text has changed, because 2000 years of oral tradition and we have the text intact. So the words have not changed, but our capacity to receive them has changed. With every round of study, something within us is shifting, and our ability to grasp, our ability to stay with the sutra is changing. I remember in class, Saras once said, the text is always available to us. The question is, what are we bringing to it? What is the container that we are taking to receive? Are you taking a teaspoon or are you taking a bucket? Yeah. So it has been my experience that with every round of study, the teaspoon is slowly evolving into a bucket. And I'm hoping that the same will happen to us in the next 6 months of study. Over time, when you study for the text for long periods of time and stay with it, the text becomes like a thread that weaves together all our life experiences. Every new experience illuminates the teaching, and the teaching illuminates our experience. Something that seemed very, very simple uh, will reveal extraordinary depth when we stay with it. So, what I've realized with the study of the text is that what was once very theoretical, it was an intellectual pursuit, has now become deeply personal. And that's why I am hooked to this text. And I keep coming back to study this text. Even this course is an excuse for me to study one more time. Very selfish, I know, but yeah, that's how, human beings operate. So love Sadhanapada also because Sadhanapada is the chapter of practice. And this chapter is for a Vyutita Chitta. That is a mind that gets drawn into confusion, conflict, doubt. A mind that can find clarity in one moment and lose it the next moment. A mind like ours. And this chapter meets us exactly where we are. The beauty of this chapter is that it acknowledges that we live with some measure of suffering, conflict, agitation, fear, grief, dissatisfaction, imbalance. All of these things show up in our body, in our breath, in our emotions, in our relationships, our habits of thought, our habits of behavior. And this teaching recognizes that each of us arrives with a unique history, particular strengths, particular vulnerabilities. So healing cannot be reduced to a technique or a formula. I remember when you are students, we may go to the teacher with the same issue, backache, but the teacher will give two very different practices to both the people because each person is unique and the practice is always given to the person, not to the condition. So I think the whole idea of Sadhanapada is that it says, it doesn't ask us to race above our difficulties or push away our difficulties or even push through our difficulties. It says, come, let us sit down and understand them. Let us have a conversation with these so-called problems and understand why they exist, where are they coming from, and what are they trying to communicate to us. So Sadhanapada keeps bringing us back to some very fundamental questions. Why do I suffer? What is sustaining my suffering? How can future suffering be prevented? What is it that I can do that will support greater clarity, greater steadiness, greater freedom? Much of this chapter is devoted to understanding the causes of suffering and the means by which these causes can be weakened. So, when you look at it this way, healing then is not simply reducing or getting rid of the symptoms. It is gradually reducing the obstacles that prevent us from living with ease, with discernment, with resilience, and with connection to our true nature. So, as we continue studying, our understanding of these things deepen. But what are we really understanding? We are not understanding the text. All of us attend the same session and we will hear the same words from Saras, but we will leave with, I don't know how many of us are there, 31. We will leave with at least 30 different understanding of what was said. Because this text gives each of us what we need at this moment. And our needs are different. So ultimately, in this program, we are not really looking at understanding the text. What we are really seeking is understanding of ourselves, our patterns, our habits, our conditioning, s- so that we can actually stop living on autopilot and we can start responding to life with a little more awareness, a little more freedom, a little more choice. So, as we continue the study, what will happen is what is hidden within us, what we have suppressed, locked away in one corner of our being, all of that will gradually show up. It'll come and reveal itself. And when we can see what is within us, and when we can see it with affection and curiosity, then there is a possibility that we can transform. The practices that are hidden in this chapter, and there are many, many practices, they help us cultivate a certain awareness. They help us refine our perception. They help us restore balance where it has been lost. They help us move from unconscious reaction to life to a conscious response. And as this awareness deepens more and more, the causes of suffering within us starts weakening, and therefore healing naturally unfolds. Yoga is not a means to cope with suffering. Yoga helps us to understand its causes and create conditions in which healing can happen. So, what we did in the phase one is Shravanam, right? Listening. And then what we are going to do in the phase two is Mananam, reflection, contemplation. And then there is Nididhyasana, which is assimilation. Saras, of course, hinted that there are many steps in between, and she'll come back and take us through each of those steps. But like she said in the beginning of this session, Shravanam is not just hearing the words, it is listening with attention, it is listening with receptivity, with trust. For the time that we are listening, we are in the session, we set aside what we think we know. We set aside our conclusions, our opinions, our comparisons, our assumptions, and we simply allow the teaching to enter, like a fertile soil receiving a seed. And we know that this quality of listening requires preparation, which is why if you look at our Shravanam sessions, we had asana, we had pranayama, we had prayer, we had moments of stillness. All of this just to make sure that our mind was ready to listen very deeply. We moved through each sutra, we looked at the words, we explored what that meant, and hopefully we explored it in the context of our own lives. And when I was listening to the session, I was listening to the recordings, I discovered that even listening like this, quietly with trust itself is very healing. Because uh, when we listen like this in the session, we are practicing also to listen to ourselves. So when we are able to listen to ourselves with a very quiet, open, trusting mind, with no judgment whatsoever, we can begin to notice our patterns, our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions. And if we are able to listen to all of that, observe all of that without immediately trying to fix them, then healing can actually start happening. So I'm hoping that Shravanam, the phase one, and the last 2 months of break has actually prepared us for the next phase, which is Mananam. So, like Sarah said, during Shravanam, we listened with our heart. Um, and then in the 2 months break, if you have really noticed, life may have reflected these teachings back to us. Now we are returning with fresh experiences, new questions, and perhaps a different capacity to receive. Maybe the teaspoon is now a tablespoon, and we are able to take a little more than we could in the last phase. During Shravanam, the question that we asked was, what is Patanjali saying here? What does the sutra mean? In Mananam, the question is different. What does the sutra reveal about me? Where do I see this in my own life, in my relationships, and my fears, my assumptions, my way of seeing this world? What is this sutra trying to show me about myself? Um, every word in the sutra then becomes like a tiny mirror in which I see parts of myself that I may have not met before. And this is what, of course, makes this text so interesting. It is a text that helps us understand ourselves. It helps us understand the way we create suffering, the way we sustain this suffering. And then it makes us wonder, is there a different way that we can hold our suffering? Is there a different way that we can respond to life? So Mananam is this process of revisiting. So we return to the recordings. Um, each session is separated by 2 weeks. So you have 2 weeks to go through the recordings of the Shravanam sessions, allowing it to seep through you, allowing it some quiet space so that it can speak to you. And then if we come back, we will summarize the session, and then we will reflect on what this could mean for us. So if Shravanam was like planting the seed, Mananam is like watering it, making sure it gets enough sunshine, putting a small fence around it so that random animals don't come and dig our seed out and, gobble it or, take it some other place. So it's our hope that this little tiny seed that we planted during Shravanam will become a seedling. So in Mananam, we will use our intellect. Like Saras said, we will make connections from one sutra to another. Saras, of course, will make connections between the sutras and other texts that she's studied. Um, we will examine our assumptions about life and about ourselves. We will wrestle with our doubts and we will seek clarity. And questions are precious in the space of Mananam. Doubts are very key to this phase. Confusion is very important. Um, the feeling that something is going wrong with me is also very valuable, because this is all evidence that we are examining ourselves and our life and the way we are responding to life. And hopefully, at the end of 6 months, the doubts are less and we find our own personal answers to the questions. So we hope that you will bring your questions, your doubts, your reflections, your insights, your confusions, your disagreements, all of this into these sessions, because they are very important for our learning. And what you bring in becomes part of everybody else's learning as well. Um, we also hope that you will revisit the recordings. I know there is this joke that I have with myself that I keep collecting recordings and never go back and revisit them. So I'm speaking from my personal flaw that, listening to recordings is a major issue. But I hope we will commit to revisit the recordings, because as you listen again, you may find that a sutra that you heard a few months back speaks directly to a situation that you are currently facing. A teaching that seemed very straightforward suddenly starts revealing more layers. Something that did not resonate at all with you when you heard Shravanam and you're like, what are they speaking about? Suddenly it makes complete sense. It, in fact, becomes very meaningful, very personal. And you are wondering, why did I not see this before? Yeah. So this is what we are hoping Mananam will do for all of us. In the first phase, we spent a lot of time understanding the sutras themselves so that we could establish a foundation. We will not be doing that in Mananam. So we encourage you to go back and listen to the recordings. What we are hoping to explore is the healing perspective, which we did very little in the first phase. We are hoping to do a lot more of it. So we are really hoping to explore how the teachings shed light on suffering, on ideas of resilience, healing, freedom, balance, all of those words that we keep throwing at each other quite often. We are going to see what the text actually says about these things and are they showing up in our present lives. Um, the only way to study this text is through inquiry. So we hope that you will actually use the WhatsApp group. We hope you will share your difficulties and your questions. And it is all of those things that are the fertilizer. That is what will nurture our study. And it is from these questions and doubts and everything that uh, insights will arrive. And we are hoping that 6 months of Mananam will prepare the ground for Nididhyasnam, which is contemplation, assimilation. Just like the food that we digest must be assimilated to become part of the body, we hope that the teachings will become part of you, part of who you are. We hope that you don't just think about them, but you actually start seeing life through them and to act through them and to live from them. So that is our hope in bringing Mananam to you. So if you could just sit up, spine straight, allowing your body to relax. Just see if you can find some sukham and stiram in your body. Find a little ease, a little steadiness, a little stillness. Just bringing your attention back to the breath, simply watching the breath as it moves in and out of your body. Can you notice how the breath moves through the body? And as you watch the breath, the mind is becoming quieter and quieter. As the body becomes still, the breath becomes still, the mind also settles down. Now, think back over the last 2 months. Was there a particular sutra or even a single word from the sutra or a teaching or a practice, something that has stayed with you through these 2 months? Maybe when you were going through a difficult situation, it showed up. Maybe it helped you see yourself or life differently. Or maybe it just stayed in the background quietly. What is that word, sutra, or practice? Now I want you to get in touch with your aspiration for Mananam. What is it that is bringing you here? What do you hope to understand more deeply? What are you curious about? What are you hoping that the next 6 months will help you see more clearly? Whatever is your intention in coming here, whatever is the aspiration that you hold, can you take a few moments to just be in touch with this aspiration? When you feel ready, you can open your eyes, and I would like to invite you to use the chat box to both um, put down the word, idea, sutra that stayed with you, and also what is your aspiration that has brought you to Mananam. Thank you, everyone. We hope that each of us are able to manifest our aspiration and connect deeply to ourselves through the sutras. So I'll ask Saras to um, take us through a little more deeper understanding of what a sutra is and how we go about studying the text.
Thank you, Lekha. So the form in which the text has been rendered is called a sutra. Yeah, it's an aphorism. Sutra, the way a sutra is created is simply putting together words. Okay, and it has to be very brief, and it has to carry all that the sutrakar, or the one who is composing the sutras, wants to communicate. So it is not possible, I think, if you really studied the sutras over and over again, you realize must have been such a brilliant mind. I don't know if it was one mind or what it was that actually allowed Patanjali to create these sutras. And something that we are able to hold on to continuously over a long period of time. The beauty of this text is that when you study it once, um, it's not possible to understand many things. It leaves us with some doubt, and that doubt actually brings us back to the text. The second round you study it, and the way it is taught is also very different. So we are assuming that a student goes to a teacher and does not start with studying the Yoga Sutra, starts with practice. Yeah, some asana, pranayama practice. And the teacher observes that the student is very diligent and they're following through their practice, and they become more interested in understanding more about it. And slowly the teacher will find that now the student is ready to study. That is when Atha Yoga Anushasanam happens. It's not like we just sign up for a course and come and study the sutras. That was not the way it was taught. And it was always taught for the student. So if you go back to the earlier recording, I would have spoken about the four primary disciples of Patanjali and how each one had a different quality, a different personality, and different capabilities. And Patanjali taught each student according to what they needed to learn. And when they learned that, they went off. And then another student stayed back. And some students stayed for a long time. So, in some sense, we are students who stay for a long time because we have to come back to it again and again and again. And you would have listened to a sutra 10 times, 15 times, and suddenly you realize, oh, I didn't understand that. I didn't get that. Because the sutra reveals itself in layers. We can never understand everything about the sutra in one round of study, which is a good thing, because we keep coming back to it and we are meeting ourselves through the sutras. It's like a mirror unto ourselves. And more will get revealed as we get better and better with listening and looking at ourselves. The more we are able to look at ourselves, the more deeper we can go into the understanding of the sutras. And I also wanted to reiterate the idea of healing because we studied with Desikachar and he was deeply passionate about healing. There are so many students who studied with Sri Krishnamacharya, and each one taught differently. Yeah, they studied at different phases of their life. They took different things and they taught differently. Desikachar could have just taught different texts, Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, and all the texts that he would have studied with Krishnamacharya, and simply stayed with that. Created more and more people who could teach these texts, but he simply focused on healing. And over the years, I have observed him, it was simply that attention to that individual. And most of what we learned, which was important in healing, was only through observing how he met a student where they were and gently walked them through the process of learning to practice regularly, making small changes in their lifestyle, and seeing huge difference, transformative change in them. And Yoga Sutra was always in the background. It was in the background when we were discussing different case studies. Sometimes he would quote some sutras or some verses from Bhagavad Gita or something to help a student to make a certain connection. And to remember that though it is a text that takes us in this journey of self discovery, understanding our true nature, reaching the highest potential that we are capable of, you cannot separate this spiritual path from healing. All healers were essentially yogis, and all yogis were fundamentally healers. Because if you want to be a yogi, you want to have a strong body, a healthy body. That was a primary requirement, right? So we can't even sit and meditate if I have a back pain or a knee pain and the mind is very disturbed and distracted. I needed um, practices, I needed a lifestyle that will help me to stay healthy and improve my health, whether we're looking at it as physical health or mental, emotional health, right? So the yogis needed to understand healing and understand how to work with medicine. Krishnamacharya was also an expert in Ayurveda. Desikachar also explored a lot of these things in his teaching, particularly working with diet. I don't know how many different ways he has worked with diet just with me. Like, every student who goes to him, he will explore something about food. And food was essentially part of the healing process. So Patanjali also was a healer. There is a prayer to Patanjali that we chant in the beginning. It says, Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena. So Patanjali is believed to have given three important texts. There are many other texts attributed to Patanjali. These three important texts, Yoga for the mind, not for the body, it's for the mind, Yogena Chittasya, Padena Vacham. He gave an important uh, commentary to a text on grammar by Panini, because that grammar text itself was very complicated. He gave a commentary to that called Mahabhashyam. And then he also is believed to have given a text on Ayurveda. And so there is a understanding that Patanjali was none other than Charaka, who gave Charaka Samhita. Okay, and if you look at the South Indian tradition, Siddha tradition, Siddhas were both healers. So we have a proper healing system called the Siddha tradition, like Ayurveda, similar to Ayurveda, but also different in some ways. And Siddhas were yogis. They're people who have developed extraordinary capabilities in their body, mind, senses, and all of that. So we cannot separate healing from Yoga Sutra. And if we study the Yoga Sutra and look at it from the healing perspective, probably it will really help us to understand how to help ourselves primarily, okay, through all the ups and downs of life and all the vagaries of the mind, but also learn how to help other people for suffering and suffering primarily because of the mind. Okay. So, what is a sutra? The Because it has to be studied and it was transferred in the oral tradition, they are very small compositions, very less words in a sutra. And a sutrakar, like Patanjali, is not just an ordinary human being who has an extraordinary intelligence. Somebody who carries an aspect that's called an amsha, an aspect of the divine. Okay? Patanjali is supposed to be an incarnation of Adishesha, according to the Vaishnavite tradition that Krishnamacharya and Desikachar are from. Adishesha is the serpent, and Vishnu is supposed to be reclining in the coils of the serpent, and the thousand hoods become like an umbrella, you know, providing the restfulness and the repose for Vishnu. And Adishesha is supposed to be sent to the earth to mitigate suffering of human beings, to offer something so that they may understand more about their mind, so that they can be free from suffering. So we can come in to study Yoga Sutra with great enthusiasm and intellectual curiosity, but unless we have really suffered, we wouldn't understand the text. Let me tell you that. And there's nobody in this earth who has not suffered. So perhaps it's our own suffering that makes us get really attached to this text. Yeah. So what is a sutra? Sutra means a thread. Okay, like a thread that you can thread beads onto it, or you can thread flowers with it to make a garland. And the thread itself is often invisible. It is the teachings and the concepts and the ideas and the examples that cover up everything. But the thread is something which is connecting each idea and concept in a very invisible manner. So, for a long time, as we study the different chapters in the text, sometimes we wonder why the sutra has come after the sutra. Why has he has not repeated any ideas, but then some ideas come again and again in the text. Like the idea of samadhi comes in the beginning of the first chapter, then the end of the first chapter, then more in the third chapter, and then a lot in the fourth chapter. You wonder why it is being repeated. But if we truly work with the text, we understand these connections. So it is a thread, it is an invisible thread. It is pointing to a certain direction. Sutra means suchayati iti sutraha. It is pointing to a certain direction that we have to look into and move towards. And therefore, every chapter is called pada. Pada means steps. Yeah. Each step takes you to the next step, and there is a clear direction provided by the sutras. How do we understand this? Initially, when I started studying the text and teaching the text, invariably there will be a question coming at the end of a particular sutra. And then let's say, yeah, that's what we're going to learn in the next sutra. And then somebody else will ask a question, and then I would say, that's what we're going to learn in the next sutra. Then I discovered that this must have been like a dialogue between the teacher and student. And every time the student brought out a question, the teacher would explain the next idea. And that's how the sutras were created. Yeah. So it appears not as a dialogue like in Bhagavad Gita, or many of the Upanishads are in dialogic form. There's a teacher, there's a student, and they are having a conversation. The student will ask a question, and then the teacher will maybe not give an answer, but ask the student to go meditate, come back, give some direction. But the sutra is not in a dialogic form, but the dialogue is hidden in it. Yeah. And that's the dialogue we want to have with each other. Okay. So it is a thread, it is invisible, it shows a certain direction. There is a certain order in which these concepts are threaded together. And there is a certain beauty behind that order. So the discovery of that order and the beauty behind that order will show us the direction that we will learn to walk through our practice and inquiry, both individually and collectively. So it's going to be a very exciting journey together. When I say exciting, it's not going to be all the time happy and all of that. We want to hold that excitement. We want to hold that curiosity for ourselves and for each other, so that we don't give up. I've also had students after a point they're saying, this is too much for me, it's too overwhelming, I want to take a break. Yeah. Maybe sometimes that is required. Like that's why we gave a break of 2 months for you to come back to the text. Maybe it is required for us to chew the cud and settle down and then come back for the next round. And I'm hoping this will be a lifelong learning process. And sutras have certain qualities. There are 6 qualities that are presented that that every sutra text should satisfy. And Desikachar used to say that Yoga Sutra is one text that satisfies all the qualities of the sutras perfectly, like 200%. Which means that there are other sutra texts that perhaps don't meet all the requirements of how a sutra should. Okay, but Yoga Sutra does. And that's why it is so relevant even today and relevant for all human beings across all times. So, what are these qualities? I don't know whether we have done it in the first round, but we will take you through it. And Lekha will also look at the qualities of Sutra from the healing perspective. So, the first quality is Alpa Aksharam. Alpa Aksharam. Alpa Aksharam, which means less words. Very terse. Brevity is a hallmark of a sutra. So there is no grammatical rules that the sutras follow. It's very brief. It's just stringing together words. So if I understand the language and I know Sanskrit grammar, it is not easy to interpret the sutras. You have to still go through the commentaries. Yeah. That is Alpa Aksharam. And that's how it has been transferred through generations, through the oral tradition, and still preserving the integrity of the text. The second quality is asandigdham. Asandigdham is there is no ambiguity in the text. Even though we study many commentaries, we may be studying many layers of meanings, but there is no confusion between does it mean this or does it mean that. That is how the sutra itself has to be written or given so that it doesn't create any ambiguity in the mind of the student. Yeah. The third quality is Paksharam Asandigdham Saravat. Saravat means it's full of essence. Sara, and if you put it the other way, rasa means essence. So that's why we have to study it over and over again, because you have to really get to the essence of each word, each letter in the word. Yeah? That is Saravat. Yeah. And the rasa is also the way the divine is defined in one of the Upanishads in Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmanandavalli. I think it's Brahmanandavalli, I'm not sure. It says Rasau Vai Saha. That is the way the text begins. Rasau Vai Saha means Saha, that higher intelligence, is defined as rasa. It's full of rasa. Okay. So that's why I said a sutrakar should carry the amsham or the quality or an attribute of the divine. Saravati. Then the next quality is Vishwato Mukham. Vishwato Mukham, it is universal in its teachings. It appeals to, or it is written for all human beings across all ages, all times. It doesn't differentiate. It is not for a particular sect of people or a community of people or a religion or language or anything. It goes beyond all that. Mukham means also face, right? Vishwato Mukham is, it has a face for everyone. So it's like, imagine every sutra is like a transparent, like a mirror, like a bead, which is like a mirror, and you can look at yourself through that. And it has a face for everyone. And at different times, the face will also change, right? And we learn more and more about ourselves. Vishwato Mukham. Astobhyam. Astobhyam means asti bhava. It is true. Okay. Why is it true? Why is that you don't need to have any doubt about the sutras? Because Yoga Sutra primarily is written from experience. It is written through practice, through understanding that comes from practice and the experience of the many generations of teachers who have offered these teachings. Patanjali clearly does not claim the ownership or the authorship of the text. He's not saying I wrote the text. He's saying this text has been compiled. The teachings have been there. Many of the teachings in Yoga Sutra are also part of the Buddha's teachings. Some of the sutras are exactly similar words and compositions. So it exists, it is so. Yeah, there is no doubt because it comes from experience. Astobhyam, anavadyam. Anavadyam is there is nothing derogatory in the text. Okay? There's nothing that can hurt the sentiments of anyone. It does not carry anything that is not dignified. So it's a composition which is presented in a very, very beautiful, dignified manner that will appeal to all. Okay, that is anavadyam. So these are the qualities of a sutra. And of course, Lekha will explore much more about this as we go by. The other thing I wanted to look at is sutra. There are many kinds of sutra texts. Okay. One kind of a sutra text is called a Anushasana Sutra. Now, Anushasana Sutra is a Yoga Sutra. It's an Anushasana Sutra because you have to take it, you have to study, you have to practice, and you have to understand it through your own experience. That's why it's called Anushasanam. Something is already established and established through practice, and you follow it, you practice it, and you establish that truth for yourself. I can learn from a teacher and I can go and teach. But unless it becomes my own experience, I have not truly learned it. Okay. Having said that, I have to admit that many things we are going to be looking at are not purely coming from our own experience. Maybe it may take more lifetimes for us to understand many levels of samadhi that Patanjali is talking about. Even simple words like ahimsa, they appear to be so simple. But do I know what is ahimsa? I'm not sure. Yeah. I can assume I know what it is. But at least I know what is himsa to some extent. Yeah. I know what is violence. I know what is pain. I know what is hurt. So I'm hoping that I will discover what is ahimsa as I go by. And it is only through the practice I'm going to discover that. So Anushasana Sutra is something that compels you to practice, and it is only through practice and one's own experience you can discover the truth of the text. Then you have Vyakhyana Sutras. Vyakhyana means it is explained in a particular way, in a special way. Okay, so the example given for Vyakhyana Sutra is Dharma Sutra. So dharma itself is a very complex word. So Dharma Sutras will actually explain the idea of dharma in very special ways so that one can understand the complexity of dharma and the application of it. Then we have what we call a Jnana Sutra. Now remember, every sutra text will always begin with the word artha, and then the second word will always be the subject matter, and the third word will be what is the nature of the text. Okay? So Atha, Yoga, Anushasanam. So it's an Anushasana Sutra. Brahma Sutra begins with Athato Brahma Jignasaha. So you are going to study about the Brahman, the highest reality. And it is through Jignasa, it is through inquiry, okay, where the mind is actually very deeply engaged. So to a large extent, the intellect is involved in it. Jignasa Sutra. Yeah. Then, so example is Brahma Sutra for Jignasa Sutras. Then we have the Vivarana Sutras. Vivarana means explain. So these are texts, sutra texts, where a lot of explanations are given. Nothing is left for somebody to imagine. And often, like Ayurveda texts, for example, Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, all of these texts, even Ashtanga Hridayam and all that, they are in sutra form because they are words put together, strung together, but they may be sometimes very long. Like there may be 15 qualities of a particular dosha that's being explained in one sutra. and they also have to be committed to memory. So an Ayurvedic physician has to remember the sutras by heart. Okay, so that they can pull up the sutras if they are looking at a patient to understand what is the problem the patient has. And if you're sitting with an Ayurvedic physician to study or to just observe, even if you're going as a patient, they will quote from some Charaka Samhita, one whole sutra, and then say, oh, that must be the problem. This is how we can understand it. That's the Vivarana Sutra. Okay. Anushasana Sutra. How can we understand an Anushasana Sutra, which is a Yoga Sutra? Through steps. And these are the steps that we have to look at, that Lekha was also talking about, right? The first step is Shravanam. We have looked at it in the previous round also. Shravanam is to listen with a quiet mind, with faith, so that we can allow the teachings to settle into ourselves. And this is listening from the heart. So they actually say there is a nadi that connects your ears to your heart, which bypasses your brain. And you listen through that nadi. Okay. That is Shravanam. The second step is, you see,
Grahanam.
Grahanam. Grahanam is to grasp. Okay. So I can sit and listen to a teacher, but I cannot remember everything that I listen to, right? And usually the way these texts are taught, the teachers will go all over the place, like I'm going sometimes. They will go into some story, some other reference, and then they'll come back to the thread again. So some things will stay with you, some things you will hold on to, some things that would impact us, right? That is the Grahanam phase. So you allow something to settle into yourself. The third phase is called Dharanam. Dharanam is dharana, which is meditation or, focusing. So Dharanam is, if I have really listened to it properly with a quiet mind, I allow something to settle into myself. I can just take one thing and hold it. I hold it, I reflect on it, I stay with it like chewing the cud, and something deeper will reveal itself. That is the Dharanam phase. Then the Mananam happens. Yeah, so the Grahanam and Dharanam actually help us to strengthen and go back to the Shravanam and get into the next stage of Mananam. So I commit it to memory. Then I'll say, okay, now I want to study the text properly. I can't just be going and listening to a teacher. I want to study it properly. I want to learn how to chant. I want to learn every word, every meaning of the word. I'm going to commit to that. Yeah, I'm going to commit maybe a lifetime to that. You don't realize it in the beginning. I'm thinking I can learn one chapter in 1 year, next year another chapter. People always say, when are you going to do the third chapter? When will you do the fourth chapter? My God, I have not even understood first and second chapter properly for me to go to third and fourth chapter. So committing it, yeah, that is the Mananam phase. It becomes a part of you. You're constantly reflecting on it. You're chanting the sutras. And even as you chant every day, like as we chanted today, you're staying with each word, right? The sound of the word, the space between the words when you're taking a breath, something will pop up. Yeah. That is the idea of Mananam. And then Mananam makes us go back to our practice, Abhyasa. So Patanjali says ahimsa pratisthayam tat sannidhau vairatyagaha. Somebody who's established in ahimsa, there will be no hostility around them. I don't know what it means because I'm constantly experiencing pushes and pulls in my relationships. Somebody is not kind to me, I want to be unkind to them. So I really don't know what this ahimsa is about. I have to go back and do my abhyasa, my practice of the yama niyamas, of asana, of pranayama, all of that. Yeah. And which means every insight I draw from the Yoga Sutra should be converted into action, into practice. Through abhyasam, Nididhyasanam will happen, which is the next step. Nididhyasanam is meditation, deep meditation. Yeah, you become one with that. You be with it continuously. It could simply be one word from the text that you could stay with for a lifetime. And of course, you're not only understanding that one word, it will weave into every other sutra and every other ideas in the text. Nididhyasanam is to completely be with something, like how we're sharing, it's like I take the food, it is digested and assimilated, and it becomes a part of me. Nididhyasanam will create experience. Yeah, it will actually lead us to certain experiences, and experience itself is not something that we need to be too much worried about or feeling great about. Yeah, very often when people talk about samadhi, they ask, have you experienced samadhi? All of this is still at the level of the mind. Let us be very clear about it. So these experiences are not so important, but the experience shows us that we are in the right direction, or maybe not in the right direction. Yeah, the experience gives us a glimpse of the direction we are moving. Yeah, that is anubhavam. And then maybe one may get ready for teaching or sharing the teachings, which is pravachanam or pracharanam. Now, pravachanam means vachanam is saying something, yeah, like uttering something, a word, or you're communicating something. Pra means in a very special way because it has come through all these steps, and these steps are not linear, they're cyclical. Doesn't mean that when I get to a stage of pravachanam, I can stop Shravanam. I have to go back to do the Shravanam continuously, go through these steps continuously. Yeah. The shortened version of it is Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, Pravachanam. But there are many sub steps to that. Okay, so this is where we are, and I'm going to ask Lekha to take us through the qualities of a sutra and to understand it from the healing perspective. Did I miss anything?
Everything is good. Thank you, Saras. Every time I listen, like today I listened and pravachanam, that was again new. So the whole idea is that each time you're listening to the same subject, but you're hearing new things. I think that's the beauty of studying this text. So, anyway, so we looked at the six qualities of the sutra. So, when you really look at the six qualities of a sutra, what you're essentially looking at is the six qualities of communication. And communication is the very heart of a relationship. It may be a spoken communication, it may be unspoken, but in every relationship, communication is key. And communication is not just speaking, it is speaking, listening, questioning, and the capacity to hold silence so that the other can listen to themselves. Yeah. And we have, many of us have done these triadic conversations, and many of us have experienced this. When one is truly listened to, one can get in touch with parts of ourselves that otherwise we don't pay attention to. So the six qualities are essentially asking us, how are you communicating? And therefore, they're asking, how is it that you are building relationships? Yeah. So this week we celebrated Desikachar's birthday, and one of my favorite definitions of yoga was given by Sir, which was yoga is a relationship. But I have been thinking healing is also a relationship. We carry many fragments of ourselves within us. And the fragmentation happens in response to life. Whatever life does to us, that results in the creation of these fragments. Like a harsh word in childhood, and there is a fragment of us that breaks and it stays, a loss that we could not grieve, a fear that we have set aside and said, let's keep going. Each one of this has essentially split a small part of us, and that part is there. And healing is simply gathering of all these fragments back together in a very harmonious way and building a relationship between these scattered fragments of ourselves, and also building a relationship between these fragments and that part of us that can hold them without judgment, with absolute love and acceptance. Because such a part exists in each of us. And this part can turn toward every other part with awareness, with acceptance. Yeah. So healing is this different fragments slowly resolving and deepening their trust in this part of us that can hold them. Um, so healing is essentially how we build a relationship with ourselves, with our experiences, with our thoughts, with our emotions, and therefore with others and with life itself. So the very same quality that helps me hold my own fragments with acceptance is what allows me to hold another person with acceptance and with love. The way I learn to be with myself is the way I am able to be with my friend or child or partner or my student. Yeah. So, as we go back and take another look at these qualities, let us see how they are integral to our healing. Yeah, so the first quality of a sutra that we looked at is alpa aksharam, few words. So, a sutra uses very few words. And have you noticed that when we start suffering, the first thing that goes out of the window is brevity? Yeah, like for example, imagine you're walking through a street and your friend walks past you without saying hello. They've not even looked at you. Now the event itself would have lasted about 3 seconds. Okay, but our mind will spend the next 3 hours thinking about it. Why did she not look at me? Is she upset? Maybe it's that thing that I told her last week. It must have hurt her. Nowadays she's very distant. Maybe she's found a new friend. Maybe our whole friendship is going to break. By evening, we are no longer responding to the 3 seconds. We are responding to the entire novel that we have written about those 3 seconds. Yeah. So, what healing would be is simply to ask one simple question: what actually happened? Not what I fear happened, not what I imagined happened, what actually happened. A friend walked past me. That is all I truly know. And when we return to that, we often find that the event itself was quite small. It was at least much, much smaller than the story that I wrote about the event. So, a couple of years back, I went to Saras. I was upset about something and I spent 1 hour. I kid you not, I spent one entire hour complaining about that context to Saras and about a particular person. I did all my drama. At the end, she patiently listened to me for 1 hour. And at the end of it, she asked me one single question. That's all she asked. And that was enough. It was like somebody had turned on a switch. Okay, all my storytelling skills just fell off, and I simply saw the event as it was. So one question, very few words, alpa aksharam. So when my child comes home upset or my friend is very quiet, alpa aksharam is the restraint not to flood them with words, not to flood them with my interpretations, my advice, my own anxiety dressed up as help. Yeah, it is sometimes the most healing thing that a teacher or a parent or a friend can offer is few words and a great deal of space. So when I'm lost in the story that I have built, can I pause and ask what actually happened? Can I stay with what happened and can I respond from there? So when we start asking this question, we can separate the event from the story. Yeah. So this is how Alpa Aksharam can help us heal. The next quality that we saw was Asandigdam, which means free from ambiguity. A lot of our suffering grows not from facts, but from assumptions that we have dressed up as facts. Yeah. Say your boss sends a message, we need to talk. That's all. Yeah. 3 words. And by the time I put the phone down, my mind has already written all kinds of narratives. Oh, he's upset. It's about that deal that I lost. Maybe he's trying to sack me. This is how the last bad conversation happened. By the time the conversation actually happens, I've already lived through a crisis that did not even exist. So here the a simple question that we can ask is, what do I know directly, or what do I know for a fact, and what is it that I am assuming? We need to talk. That was a fact. Everything else that my mind created to fill the silence, that was all assumption. So asking again, what is the fact? Yeah. So we see, at least I see this all the time. Like, for example, my teenage daughters uh, can sometimes be quite, rude. And immediately my mind says, oh, she's being disrespectful. Maybe she's not well. Maybe she just needs to have a little bit of rest. My student, ghosts me, does not come back for the next session. Immediately there is a story saying, oh, I have lost interest. Maybe it is because, the practice didn't work, or maybe I should have said this, or I should have done it. Maybe they are quietly struggling. If you reach out, they'll be like, thank you so much. I really wanted to speak with you, but I did not know how. I've not done my practice for 2 weeks, so I'm feeling a little bit guilty to talk to you. Yeah. So the whole idea of asandigdam is to separate fact from assumption so that we can really look at what is truly happening. Then Saravat. Saravat means full of essence. So every word of a sutra carries essence. Nothing is decorative in a sutra. But in our relationships, we will see that we will spend a lot of time on the superficial thing, the sharp tone that they used, the slammed door, the words that they actually said. But usually there is something much more deeper, fundamental that is waiting underneath saying, look at me. So somebody is angry with us. We can meet that anger with more anger. Or we can ask, what is it that this anger is carrying? Many times we'll discover that beneath the anger is hurt. Sometimes we see somebody who's trying to control everything around them. If you really look deeply, beneath that control is usually fear. Sometimes somebody is relentlessly a perfectionist. I suffer from this particular illness. Yeah. But beneath that perfection, or that need for perfection, is often a vulnerability, a fear of not being enough, a fear that what I'm doing, what I am being is just not enough. Sometimes I see this, like I had this student who was very upset because, the appointment, they had an appointment, and I showed up like a couple of minutes late. They were furious. But then when I really stayed with their anger and really started asking them, where is this coming from? then there was this whole, sense of I am not respected, I'm not seen, my struggles are not seen. So there was grief, there was fear, and things that had been suppressed for very, very long periods of time. So a lot of our life is holding space for other people, right? Whether we are teachers, we are holding space for our students. As a friend, we are holding space for our friends, for our family. So a lot of holding space is asking this question: beneath this surface level disturbance, what is actually happening here? What is it that is asking to be seen, asking to be witnessed? Vishwato Mukham. One of the things that I love about the Yoga Sutras, and I keep saying I love about the Yoga Sutras because there are a lot of things that I love about this text. But one of the things that I love about this text is, it was compiled 2000 years ago. I don't even know when it was created. But so that was a different world, right? I can't even fathom that world. But the sutras feel very real to me today. They feel very true to me today. I'm living in this modern world, nothing like the world in which this text was created or compiled, but every word feels true. So, all of us struggle, right? All of us struggle with uncertainty. We struggle with attachment, with loss, with change, disappointment, fear, all of that. And the moment we suffer, the mind will narrow to a very single point and ask, why is this happening to me? Yeah, it happens only to me. But when we start studying this text, we learn to widen the lens. We see that we are taking part in something that is profoundly human. It doesn't mean that our pain is any less real or less important. It is real, it is our pain, but we are not alone in it. Every human being in the present world and in the past and in the future will walk through the same struggles. It will be different form, it will be in a different dress, but it is the same pain that all of us go through, the same struggles. The beauty of having this wider lens is that most of the time when we are suffering convinces us that we are alone. Like, for example, when you have someone who's been newly diagnosed with some condition, they will lie awake in the night thinking, no one can possibly understand what I'm going through right now. But the truth is, there are others who have walked this exact path. Some have survived it, some have grown through it. And just knowing this gives us hope. Knowing this means we reach out for help instead of sealing the doors and wallowing in our own suffering. Somewhere on this earth is someone who has been where I am today. And that person may have something meaningful to offer me. So, Vishwato Mukham. When we hold another person, right, it Vishwato Mukham asks us to not make that person feel strange or alone in whatever it is that they are carrying. Say a friend comes to us and confides a shame that they have hidden for many years. Vishwato Mukham means I receive it without recoiling because I know that this is human, that I carry my own version of this shame. There are things about me that I would not share with others because I'm ashamed of it. As a teacher, if one has not touched one's own struggles, they cannot hold the struggle of a student with love, with acceptance. As a parent, if you do not remember your own younger days and your own foolish things that you did in your youth, then you cannot hold the shame that a child feels about the things that they are currently doing with care and with love. Essentially, Vishwatomukam is just reminding us to hold somebody so that they feel I'm not abnormal, I'm not alone. And the minute that happens, something starts healing within that person. There is this um, story that I heard about this African village where when somebody is ill, they put that person in the center of a circle. Everybody sits around and tells beautiful things about them. And just by doing this, the person heals. Yeah.
Lekha,
So, yeah.
sorry, yeah, this is actually when somebody does something, like they commit a
Okay.
crime or something.
Commit a crime. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, Vishwatomukam is just that reminder that what I'm going through, as unique as it may be, is a human experience, and I'm not alone in this. Astobhyam. Astobhyam is, it is true, it is from experience, it is from practice. But the way I like to look at it is it's free from all unnecessary additions. So if you look at a sutra, not one alphabet, forget a word, even every alphabet in a sutra is necessary. There is nothing in a sutra that is unnecessary. So when we look at our own suffering, we can ask, what have I added that was never part of the original pain? Say there is a physical pain. Okay, I cannot argue with a physical pain, right? It is there, I feel it. And there's not I can do some things about it, but not a whole lot. But if I really watch, I will see what is it that I'm adding on top of this physical pain. Like victimhood. Why me? This only happens to me. Everybody else is out there living a wonderful life while I lie here suffering with this pain. I add fear. Will this ever heal? Will I be like this forever? Will it get worse? What will happen to my work? What will happen to my family? So the pain was like one stone. Then I keep adding more stones on top of it and I make a whole mountain of it. So the pain is real. It is part of the human condition. But the comparison, the blame, the self criticism, the rehearsal for the future, replaying of the past, layer upon layer upon layer, all the things that I'm adding, these are optional. Like I can do away with them, right? So imagine if you had fever and you're lying in the bed. Now the fever is the body doing its work. It's fighting whatever is the antigen that has entered your body. But imagine spending the night terrified of the fever, which is your body's healing response. Yeah. So when I am struggling, when I am suffering, can I see what I am adding to my pain? And healing simply is not adding. Yeah. Releasing the story, releasing the dread of the future, saying, let me just stay with what it is now. What can I do for it now? What would bring me comfort now? And how much are we adding to our pain without actually meaning to? And how much are we adding to the pain of others without meaning to? Like, for example, if a child brings a bad um marks, in an exam, like a bad report, we will add our fear of its entire future, right? We'll be like, oh, you have failed one test, therefore you will fail in life, that kind of extrapolation. Sometimes our partner will make a mistake and we will sit and rehash every past grievance that we have with that person. In 2 years back you said that, and 3 years back you did that, and you always forget to take the garbage out, and the whole list of things. So to hold space with astobhyam is to meet the one thing that is actually there, this moment. without loading our history, our fear, our other agendas, all of that on top of that. So the question is, what is it that I can release that is no longer serving clarity? What is it that I'm building on top of the existing pain? Then there is anavadyam. Anavadyam is non-harming. Our students are our finest teachers. So, and I think I learn more from my students than my teachers. Again and again, I have this experience where a student will sit in front of me and will pour out one whole river of complaints, not about other people, huh? About themselves. And they are so harsh, they are so unsparing with themselves. And I find myself thinking, hello, are you not able to see what a wonderful human being you are? Can you not see how hard you are trying? Under the circumstances, another person would have broken. Can you not see it? And then I go home and I journal. And as I'm journaling, I realize I speak to myself in the exact same way. Yeah, this harshness that we would never use it on another person, we reserve for ourselves. If a friend makes a mistake, we would be very gentle with them. We'll say, it's okay, it's fine, not a problem. But for ourselves, a small mistake and the punishment that we give ourselves, the criticism that we give ourselves is enormous. So, Anavadyam is asking, can we return to the Yama? Can I hold the truth of what is causing me pain, but with ahimsa? Can I be truthful and non harming at once? Can I see my error without attacking myself for it? Can I acknowledge that this is difficult for me without adding self criticism and violence to it? Can I be completely honest and compassionate to every fragment of myself? Yeah. So these six qualities which describe a sutra is essentially six qualities that help us um, be a certain way, be a way, be in a way that allows us to heal, and be with another so that it allows them to heal. So very quickly, Alpaksharam, am I adding more to it than is actually here? Asangdigdam, am I clear about what I truly know and what is it that I am assuming? Saravat, have I touched the essence beneath the reaction? Vishwato Mukham, can I see that this is a part of the larger human story? Astobhyam, what unnecessary layers can I set down? Can I release? Anavadyam, is my relationship with myself aligned with Satyam and Ahimsa, with truth and non harming? So, if we can hold these questions as we move through our life, slowly the different parts of ourselves will start feeling safer and they may come a little more closer and they may show themselves a little more willingly to us and they may slowly resolve back into the whole. And the very same qualities that we learn to hold for ourselves are the qualities that we can hold for everybody that we love. So we offer them alpaksharam, fewer words, so that there is room for them to speak. We listen without rushing to fix. We or don't fill the silence with our own discomfort. We offer them asandikdam. We ask rather than assume. We stay with what they actually said and resist the temptation to write their story for them. We offer them Saravat. We listen beyond the surface. We listen to what is deeper beyond the words, beyond their immediate reaction. We respond to what is really being expressed. Vishwato Mukham, we let them feel that they are not strange or abnormal, they are not alone, they are not um, cast out by what they carry, but they're completely human alongside us. Asthobium, we meet what is actually there without piling history and fears and our expectations on them. Anavadyam, we become a place where they can be honest and still feel safe, where truth can be held with tenderness so that the truth can heal the wounds. So this is what these six qualities teach us about healing. Saris, if you want to add.
Thank you, Lekha. We have a little time if anyone has any questions, but I just wanted to uh, share two things. One is that because we are going to be dealing with healing, we will bring in some case studies, some examples, and I'm sure it will evoke a lot of things for you as well. We really hope that you will find time to listen to the recording before you come into the session so that we don't have to go back to explaining each sutra. We won't do that. We will spend a little time, maybe about 20 minutes, to review that session, like do a quick summary of the session that you would have listened to, we are hoping. And we will also give you the link to the YouTube recording of each week, so as a reminder. Then we will look at the healing perspective, and then we're going to give a large chunk of time for your sharing and questions that you bring in. Today, both of us, there was no alpaksharam and all that. We spoke a lot, but we're not going to do that from the next session. We are not going to be speaking a lot. Yeah, because it is the Mananam session where it's simply coming back with our own questions and doubts and reflections and experiences, and trying to understand together what we are bringing together. Yeah. Having said that, I also want to say that this will not be like a group therapy session. So we are not going to be coming into the session to find solutions for our personal issues. Some people may feel very comfortable sharing in a large group, but it might actually trigger things for other people. And I think it is not appropriate to bring something very personal into a space like this, which is actually a learning space. Okay. So use your discretion, share only what is most comfortable for you and what is appropriate for the group, that it becomes a learning for everyone. There's something personal that emerges, please take it to your personal practice teacher or your mentor to work with. And you may also want to reach out to us if you want. We can figure out how we can try to look at that. Yeah, but not to bring it into this. This is not going to be a group therapy session. It's going to be a learning session. So that's something I wanted to reiterate again. And please find time to go through the recording so that we can all come and discuss more and learn together. Yeah, that's going to be the Mananam session. The other thing, like what I already said, was through this phase of 6 months, there are a lot of things that life will throw upon us. Let us actually use Yoga Sutra study as an opportunity to see what growth opportunities that these learning experiences and life experiences will bring to us. Okay? So it is going to be something that is going to be woven through our life experiences. And let's move forward with enthusiasm and faith. We're going to be holding each other in this. Whatever is being shared here, spoken here, remains confidential. We don't bring it up outside of the circle, right? We don't bring it up even with the same person. You said, in class you said that. How is that situation now? Don't. Yeah. Unless that person wants to talk. Okay, so suppose I shared something very personal in this space, and I meet Lekha later. I have the freedom to tell her, you know what happened. I spoke about this in class, but Lekha has no business to ask me what happened with that situation. I wanted to clarify that. Yeah, confidentiality is something we want to practice. We have to practice in this place. Okay. Anything else? Sorry, we're giving you 2 minutes to talk, but so if there's something, the WhatsApp group is there, please share. And if you feel like as we go through these sessions, you would like us to do something differently, uh, please share that. You can share individually with us or in the group, and we will work with it. Yeah. We just want to make the whole learning process as beautiful and effective for all of us. Yes, Susan.
I just wanted to say I never heard of the word Nididhyasanam before.
Ah,
And is it like dhyanam? It's like that of a deeper contemplation.
um, it is meditation. The dhyasanam is meditation.
Right.
Dhyanam, nididhyasanam come from the same root.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank,
so just deeper meditation, you take one idea and you go deep into it
right.
and
Thank
make
you.
it part of you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a beautiful word.
Okay, shall we close for today? Yes, Brigitta, we are so happy that all of us are here together to begin this journey. So, those of you who joined for the session and have not signed up for the program, if you feel invited to join, please reach out to us so that we can help you with the registration process. Okay. And all the details are there on the website. Okay. Thank you. I'll finish with the prayer. Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone.